Hey, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Mean Streets, powered by FTN. I'm your host, Chris Meaney. Thanks, as always, for taking the time to hang out. Happy Monday to everybody out there. This is going to be a heavy fantasy baseball show, and I got a great guest as she is back on Mean Streets. Can you believe it? Jen Piacenti agreed to join me yet again. She is the lead NFL and MLB analyst over at Fantasy Alarm. She is a busy girl, also a host of Waiver Wired at the Extra Points Podcast Network, host at Sirius XM as well. So really looking forward to chatting some MLB and maybe just on the way out, potentially NFL, because I know she's super prepped for the NFL season as well. Jen, thanks for taking the time. How are you?
Hey, my pleasure. And here you are already trolling me with your Angels cap, but that's fine.
Listen, how could I be trolling? I mean, the Angels are still brutal again, and the Astros are where you and I thought the Astros would be, and you know, not the public, I guess. I'm sitting here today looking at World Series odds, and then the Dodgers are scuffling. They've had some injuries.
Yeah.
You and I did the Astros preview here on Mean Streets, and we talked about just the value that they had last year, you know, throughout the postseason. We were having some fun, you and I doing shows together and picking Houston. The value with the Astros on draft day. And today I'm looking at them 17-1 to win the World Series. I mean, they may not have the pitching, but there's a lot of teams that don't have the pitching, Jen.
Yeah, and you know what? I'm not sure that they don't have the pitching, actually. I mean, we have Framber Valdez coming back, and I know Greinke hasn't had his best stuff, but Luis Garcia has been pretty darn good in his limited starts. Maybe we'll talk more about him later. And Urquidy, you know, they're getting it done. However they're doing it, we still have Odorizzi. I don't know how much hope you have in Odorizzi, but there are options. And yeah, our bullpen's not the greatest, but the run differential, right? It's absurd. I think that we have the best batting average. I think we have the second best run differential after Boston, I think. Anyway, the numbers are staggering when you look at it. And if you look at it, there's really no reason why Oakland should be leading the division. I think that ultimately Houston's going to come out on top. If they continue at this pace, they can't help but come out on top.
Those A's are they just don't go away. And that's one thing that I as an Angels fan, I expect the Astros to be good, but it does bother me that the A's just find a way every single year to contend and hang around. And they made the postseason last year. And then we're seeing the kids get called up in Seattle, and Trout and Ohtani have been so good. And Jared Walsh has been awesome. Yet this team is still just multiple games back. Here we're looking at them right now. They're 6.5 back of Oakland. They're 17-22, just a half game ahead of Texas and behind Seattle, 3 games. So it's crazy to me. But yeah, the Astros, in my opinion, and I've said this numerous times with you, I say it on the FTN MLB live stream that we do every single day. And I mean, I'm not on the show every day, but it's a 7-day per week. And by the way, it is free today, absolutely free. Right here in our YouTube network with Big John and David Jones. It's happening at 6 Eastern. So get in there. And I mean, both of those guys are just fantastic. You'll learn a thing or two. There's no question from just listening to those guys talk about baseball. But the Astros are the best team in baseball. Offense. I really do feel that way. And like they are just, and there's some guys in that lineup like Correa who we still haven't seen what he can bring to the table, but yeah, you're right. Average is right up near the top, number 1 in WRC plus. Yeah, they enter 332 WOBA, which is just behind Boston and Cincy. I'm taking a look.
We did do that Astros preview, and I don't know if anybody watched the Astros preview. I said that I thought Kyle Tucker shouldn't be the first Astro drafted. Well, I want to now put a caveat on that. I still think he shouldn't have been the first Astro drafted, but right now, if you can approach the Kyle Tucker owner, if he's at all nervous, which he might not be because you may have already closed your window, you need to go get Kyle Tucker because he has heated up so much over the last couple of weeks. This guy's expected batting average is closer to 280, even though he's batting like at 200 right now. He's got immense power. He's about to come on strong. So if by any chance the Kyle Tucker, manager is freaking out because he drafted him way too early and was expecting more, you might want to put in a trade offer.
Yeah, it'd be hard to get him maybe because of
it might be now.
Yeah,
it might be now. I think people are starting to catch on. A week ago
You're right. Absolutely. And it's so, as you know this, it's so weird in fantasy baseball, especially I find it's always about what have you done for me lately? There's that break in football. You have time to, maybe there's a bad matchup and you expect them to bounce back and you drafted the high draft capital. You don't want to part with those players. And then baseball, when they go through like a 10-day slump, people I feel like are willing to just cut ties and move on immediately. Like a lot of the sleepers that you and I talked about, a lot of people in the industry talked about, 10 days into the season, they just forget it. Bobby Dahlbeck, I don't want anything to do with that guy. And then now he's starting to hit home runs that are like hitting, buildings outside of Fenway Park. But Tucker is, over the last 2 weeks, I'm looking at a league with runs, hits, homers, RBI, stolen base, and total bases, average, and on base percentage. So not your standard format. But he is the 10th best player in fantasy baseball over the last 2 weeks. He's got 14 runs. He's 13 for 41. He's got 4 bombs, 12 RBI. He's hitting 317 with a 417 on base percentage. This is one of several Astros here inside the top 25. Yuli Gurriel, who I don't feel like gets any respect at all in the DFS.
Yuli Gurriel is one of my heroes. He's somebody I drafted late only in one league. Thankful it's a league I play in with like all touts, 15 teams. I mean, literally Ariel Cohen and Derek Carty are on the same team. They teamed up. Like, is that even fair? They play in this league. You can't get anyone. So it was a salary cap league I spent $1 for Yuli Gurriel and $1 for Jesus Aguilar. Those two guys are carrying my team because I've been without Eloy, got injured, and Christian Yelich. But those guys are keeping me in it. Yuli Gurriel, by the way, let's see. What are his numbers now? 7 home runs, I think. 7 home runs, 31 RBI, a 322 batting average. And it's not like it's a dramatic split. He's hitting 339 versus lefties, 309 versus righties. He's not striking out. Top 3% of the league in that category. 12% walk rate, 20 walks, which leads the team, the Astros. This guy's 36 years old. And, whenever he came over for Cuba, that was his hitter profile, right? He doesn't strike out. He just hits. Well, last year we saw him kind of drop off. He really stunk like, oh, he's over the hill. This is it. Nah, he's back. Yuli Gurriel is back. I don't think he's going to hit 332 all season, but he's going to hit 280.
Yeah.
And that's, your number 5 or your number 7 hitter in this lineup.
I mean, he's a career 289 hitter. Last year was, must be nice, eh? I mean, we're 10 minutes in. It's all Astros. You're just making it to me. I'm rocking the hat. It's like,
Astros. I don't
listen,
one-trick pony.
He's just the 7th hitter in this lineup. Yeah. You're dead on. He's got more homers this year than last year. It's the sample size now is very similar to last season. We're getting close to that. 39 games, 165 plate appearances, 7 bombs, 31 RBI. So last year in 230 plate appearances, he had fewer homers, 6 and 22 RBIs. To your point, hit 232. That's the outlier because he's a career 290 hitter, 298 the year before, 291 before that, 299 in 2017. Yeah, he doesn't get any respect, I don't think, in the DFS community. Also inside the top 20 over the past couple of weeks is your guy, Jose Altuve. We got Yordan Alvarez, who came into the season getting drafted outside the top 50 on average. This guy is a top 10 player in fantasy.
Yeah.
4 bombs, hitting 404 with a 404 on base percentage over the last 2 weeks as well. So just crazy stuff. There are some surprises, though, I feel like. And the Astros, to me, not a huge surprise. The Red Sox atop the AL East, 25-17, scoring runs and getting pitching. Scoring runs is not a surprise, but getting pitching. The Yankees were off to that slow start. Now they're 2 back. The Jays 1.5 back. That's going to be just an absolute dogfight, including the Rays inside that division. Our White Sox, who just happen to be up against a lefty today, we'll gush over them in a little bit. They are atop the AL Central. No real surprise there. The surprise for me inside the division is the Twins, 13-25, 10.5 back. They're not getting the pitch, and they've scuffled a little bit offensively. Also up against a lefty today. Those 2 teams will play each other. Chicago and Minnesota, they're both inside the top 10 in almost every single metric against Southpaws. They just played each other a 3-game set, and they combined for 39 runs. It was ridiculous. So Oakland atop the West. The Astros right there, as you mentioned. I guess the surprise would be Seattle. I'm not shocked that the Angels is pathetic. Let's go over to the NL. The Mets up at the top. 18-16. They played fewer games than most teams because of, there was some COVID to start the season and some weather games, but I feel like they're starting to hit their stride. They've won 7 of their last 10 ball games. and Washington at the bottom there, 16 and 20, but it's very tight. I mean, Washington's in the bottom in the NL East, but only 3 back of the Mets. The Cardinals up at the top in the NL Central is not a surprise to me. The Brew Crew getting absolutely zero offense with your guy Ellich on the IL for one of your fantasy squads, but they are absolutely getting pitching. And then, as everybody expected, the San Francisco Giants up at the top of the NL West, a half-game lead on the San Diego Padres and 2 up on the Dodgers. Somebody asked me the other day if the Dodgers were going to be in trouble. I said, nah. And then all of a sudden, like, guys just start falling.
They lost Corey Seager. They lost AJ Pollock. Yeah, I know.
Justin
it's
Bay,
terrifying.
Tommy John. Like, they entered with maybe the most depth in baseball or close to it, but now it's getting tested.
Unbelievably deep. I mean, you know, Zach McKinstry. I mean, you just go down the line, right? I mean, at least now you have Gavin Lux, but still, like, eventually they're going to hit. I mean, to the point that these guys just went and got Albert Pujols. So, yeah, I'm a little concerned about not really. They're going to get Bellinger back. It looks like Seager's going to be back within a month. It doesn't require surgery. Pollock, I don't know how long, Pollock's always in and out. David Price, there's a lot. Losing Dustin May definitely stinks. But they still have Trevor Bauer, as much as I hate him. They still have, Julio Reyes. They still have a lot of good Walker Buehler. They have a lot of good pitching. I think ultimately they'll be fine. They'll make it to postseason, whether or not they end up winning the division or how they get in it. I think it's going to be the Padres and the Dodgers. But San Francisco, I think that's the biggest surprise for me, and how they're doing it with their pitching. And there's a few hitters too, Brennan Belt, Brandon Crawford. It's been really interesting. I don't think San Francisco is going to hold long term, though. I have this whole theory about pitching's been so good this year. League batting average is like 234, the lowest of all time. So the hitters just, is it the new ball? What is it? But I think eventually, if you look at your roto leagues and you look at who's in last place with their ERA, that ERA could have probably been second or third place any other season. The ERA is just so low. Pitchers are pitching so well. I don't think that can hold for the whole season once the weather heats up, once pitchers have a lot of wear and tear on their arms. So I'm even kind of advocating, there's so many good pitchers right now. So many, Nick Pivetta. I mean, you're getting really random pitchers with these great ERAs, and I'm kind of advocating moving them and starting to build up your hitting and moving that around as the summer comes.
Yeah, absolutely. The warmer weather, balls are going to start to fly over parks, over fences. There's no question. Yeah, you and I are in a roto league together. I just on the fly here, as you mentioned, the ERA, you're at 3.09, the second best ERA among the 12 teams. I'm sitting there at 5 at 3.39. Who do you got on this squad here? So you got Seager, who just went down, some injuries.
Yep.
You got Alvarez on there. You got Will Myers. So Stanton he went on a heck of a run there.
I just made a trade for Stanton. So I traded Lindor for Stanton because I thought I had a glut of middle infield. I had so many middle infielders, I couldn't use them all. And then of course Seager goes down.
That's usually the way it works, right? That happens so much to me when I make a trade. It's like, oh man, I didn't need that to happen to trade. So you got Stroman here, who I like this guy a ton. He got roughed up a little bit towards the end of his start yesterday, but I think he's just a solid real life pitcher. Flaherty's on this squad here. John Means, one of the guys. I mean, the no hitters have been flying around already to start the season. Kopech is a guy that I like, and then Lance McCullers. So you got a strong team there, pitching wise. I'm not going to talk about my team. Nobody's here for it, but I got your boy Christian Javier. Freddie Peralta's on that squad. Woodruff, Nola, Molly, and Yu Darvish there. So you and I are at least competing in the pitching department. Yeah, it is interesting. The Pujols thing, as you brought it up. And I know Pujols is nowhere near the type of guy that he was just a few years ago even. But what do they got now? 4 former MVPs in that squad? Betts, Bellinger, Pujols, Kershaw, and then Kershaw, right. Bauer, Price, Cy Youngs, and then Walker Buehler.
That's right.
It's crazy.
Make it one. Yeah.
Rich get richer. I'd say that is the surprise, San Fran. I wanted to talk to you about buy lows and sell highs.
Yeah.
The Giants, Like Kevin Gossman has been one of those guys that's been good, a 1.84 ERA. The xFIP is 3.21. Desclafani has been solid. He's put together some decent outings. He's got a solid 54% ground ball rate. He's got the 2.14 ERA, xFIP around 3.5. Alex Wood is looking like Alex Wood of a few years ago. Man, he's been great too. A 1.75 ERA, a 2.88 xFIP. Would you sell any of those guys? It's so tough to, like, what are you going to get in return when you go to say, hey, you want Alex Wood? He's got a 1.75 ERA. I plucked him off the waiver wire. He's got a 62% ground ball rate. He pitches in a pitcher-friendly ballpark. He's got 5 wins already in 6 starts. Do you want this guy or do you just hang on?
For me, for Alex Wood, I might just hang on because of where I got him. And I feel like he's just adding value and he didn't cost me anything, if you will. Someone like Kevin Gausman, I might move.
Yeah.
Because I don't think he's going to I think he's going to be good, but I don't think he's going to be this great. And
you probably get a better return for him too.
You could get a better return for him because of course the concern with Alex Wood is everybody believes he's going to be injured. I love Alex Wood, especially for DFS. I mean, he's just dominating in DFS because for some reason they haven't caught on to the fact that he needs to be priced higher.
Well, he was, what was he yesterday on FanDuel? 7.5 or 7.4 or something silly?
Something silly. So, and I think it's just like people are worried about his injury history. And I don't know if that's the case for FanDuel, but in general, I think it would be harder to get a return for Alex Wood. So I'm just riding Alex Wood as long as I can.
Yeah. So who are some players that you mentioned Tucker, if you could get him. I'm going to rattle off just the most traded. I looked at roster trends here this morning, according to CBS Sports. So these are the most traded players. I would imagine of just the past week. That's usually how CBS runs through things, or maybe the most traded as of today, because the numbers are fairly low. Dane Dunning up at the top, 16 times traded. Victor Robles, 13. I know he had a decent day the other day, but people seem to be they've always pumped Robles over the past couple of years. I think mostly because they want stolen bases. Keston Hiura, my goodness. I mean, this guy cannot make contact with the bat, and he's not even playing in the bigs right now. 13. Charlie Blackman, Austin Meadows, Nate Pearson. That may be just a dynasty move. I mean, he suffered the injury. He's not bad. He's not up with the squad. Yelich has been flipped around quite a bit. Aaron Nola, Chris Bryant, and then Patrick Corbin. Patrick Corbin is kind of interesting to me because he started off so bad. The velocity wasn't there. He finished last season so brutal as well. He was just getting hit hard. But I've been hearing some people looking to buy low on him, and that may be what I'm looking at here. I mean, in the top 10 in traded players, anyone here catch your eye that you would want?
I would definitely go get Patrick Corbin. He was fantastic his last start out. I think he's probably got it back. I think he just had an extended issue, whatever it was, and Patrick Corbin's too good to just outright drop. I would have held him if I had him on a team. I just would have put him on the bench. And I would definitely look to acquire him if I need pitching. Charlie Blackman is someone I've been telling people to go acquire for some time. His surface stats look bad. I don't know what they are as of now. They're probably a little higher, like 222. But a few weeks ago it was like 188. He was batting, but this guy still gets on base. Again, he hits in cores. He's an OBP monster. There's a lot more coming from Charlie Blackman, but I know people are expecting the Charlie Blackman of old. You may not get a 300 hitter and you're not going to get the speed anymore, but you're still going to get good solid batting average from someone at course and a great OBP. So for me, Charlie Blackman is someone to go acquire. Who else did you mention?
What about Yelich? Would you take the shot on Yelich? I mean, it looks like he's close to coming back, so I don't know if anyone would move him, in a standard redraft Yahoo CBS league, but that'd be a guy that I'd be into getting if I could.
I would too, if I could acquire him. As far as whether anyone would be willing to move him, I think you would actually have to give up quite a lot because the person that has Yelich probably wanted him as a cornerstone to their team. So they're going to need something pretty major back to give up that upside.
Yeah, there's no question. Like, let's say, here's for instance, Jared Walsh. You would flip Jared Walsh for Christian Yelich, correct? I mean, is that a move?
Yeah, I would take, absolutely. I would take Christian.
Yeah. I mean, it's a no-brainer, and it seems silly to even bring it up to you. But there's casual, fantasy baseball players out there, and I'm just looking at the top 10 batters right now in fantasy, and he's one of them. I mean, Walsh has got 7 bombs, hitting 338, 441. But if you could package him and something else, maybe one of those hot waiver wire pickups, maybe it's an Alex Wood to go and get
maybe
yourself
Michael Pineda.
Maybe Pineda. I think, package a 2-for-1 for one of these guys. I think also Francisco Lindor is going to break out here very, very soon. He was looking at Yahoo, on average, the 16th player drafted, and right now, currently 518 is where he's ranked, hitting 190, only has the 3 homers, 2 stolen bases. His on-base percentage is .301. But are you in the camp of adding Lindor? Because this guy, I mean, look at the back of the baseball card. Jenny went 0 for 4 the other day, but other than that, he's starting to put together some hits, some runs. He's got a couple stolen bases over the last week and a half, too.
I think you have to be in on Francisco Lindor. I mean, he's career-wise, he's always been good. So, we overreact to these cold streaks. Mm-hmm. You just can't. It's a 162-game season. I think we all have a little PTSD from that 60-game season, and we're all freaking out, right? We're like, we have to make moves because, this was, as you mentioned, this sample size is already almost the entire season of last year. So, you would have been screwed if Francisco Lindor were your only guy. But there were entire 60-game stretches a couple of seasons ago where Jose Ramirez was stunk.
That's right.
I don't know if you remember that.
He was one of the worst players in baseball.
He was one of the worst players in baseball. And right now he's one of the best players in baseball because when a player is that good, they're going to be that good. Now, there are other players that I'm looking at that have only been around a year or two. Like, if you're looking at someone like Randy Arozarena, or you're looking even at someone like, Austin Meadows, we believe that they're really good and we want them to be really good, but they don't have a track record of a Francisco Lindor, right? You go back, Francisco Lindor is really, really good. He always hits the ball. There's nothing in his, his StatCast metrics don't look great this year, but he's going to come back.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I just feel like now is the time, and I know you did this at Fantasy Alarm, myself as well, talking about Jose Ramirez. I mean, the guy finished getting MVP votes. So it's only a matter of time as the weather, we're into mid-May here now, as the weather starts to get warmer, some of these guys will heat up. I mean, it's outliers. There's no question. Right. And baseball is a streaky sport. We're going to get a full season, hopefully. A guy like Francisco Lindor has got a hell of a track record. He's going to turn around. I'm just looking. There's a few other players. You mentioned Arozarena. So he has, I guess, not lived up to all the hype and the expectation. How could you when you have a postseason like that? But he's in there for me as a buy low. I mean, DJ LeMahieu, can you get him? Maybe not. He's outside the top 100 currently. He was a top 40 hitter coming into drafts. Pete Alonso is another guy that I think will start to heat up here, and the balls will start flying over the park.
Smith is someone I think is going to start to heat up.
Okay. Eugenio Suarez. I mean, I didn't know what to do with this guy in a shallow league. I saw Chapman on the waiver wire, and I picked up Chapman anyways. And I have Suarez, and it's super shallow. There's no corner outfield. There's no utility. So I can only play 1/3. And he does have short eligibility in Yahoo, but I already have Lindor there. So I was like, what do I do with Suarez? I got to keep him. He's got so much power. Now he's starting to heat up a bit. He's got 2 homers in the past week. He's only hitting $153. Is he somebody that you would go and get if you need power? Because he's going to hit 30 bombs, is he not? He's going to at least float.
Yeah, I think if you need power, I mean, you know, with Eugenio Suarez, that's all you're getting. You didn't expect to get more than a 230 batting average. If you were expecting more than that, then you were drafting incorrectly. So as long as you can, you have other ratios to protect yourself from that batting average. But again, reminder, I mentioned this earlier, league batting average is 234 this year. So if you're looking at a guy that gets you power that can bat you 234, you should probably go ahead and get him, because at least you're at league average at that point. We're just having a very bizarre year, probably to have to do a little with the new ball, et cetera, et cetera. But Eugenio Suarez, we know he has the power. He just had an extra slow start. You're never going to get batting average from him. Know that. And if you need power, stash him on your bench.
I'm looking at the top 25 hitters, trying to find somebody to sell high here. And I mean, they're just studs up at the top. JD's number 1, Vlad's number 2. Okay, Vlad, I am absolutely here for Vlad. Ronald Acuna 3, Bogarts 5, Castellanos 8, Bryant 9, Turner 10. So stud bats here. Devers, Bichette, Shohei, your guy, Yuli, my guy, Walsh, Trout, Mitch Haniger. Mitch Haniger, I think, was a guy you and I talked about when we did the Astros preview and on the way out, we were talking about sleepers and people going late. Mitch Haniger went well outside the top 200 picks. He's a top 20 player right now. He's got 12 home runs. He's got hits in 3 straight. He is scoring runs for Seattle. Are you in on keeping him, or would you sell high? We know he's had a bit of a history of suffering injuries, but some of those were weird injuries.
So I think I would sell high, but I have to say it's interesting. He has an expected slug of 546 right now. That's the 90th percentile of the league. He's DHing, right? So occasionally you're not going to get a start from him. He's usually batting second, which is crazy because he has 30 RBI batting second.
I know.
In the lineup. So, and the really great thing about Mitch Haniger this year is that he's clutch. He's slugging .615 with a 1.086 OPS in late and in close games. So Mitch Haniger is why the Seattle Mariners are competing. And now, you throw Jared Kelenic in there and all that. But I do not think Mitch Haniger is going to maintain this. There's nothing to say. I mean, he's been very good. I see this as an extraordinarily hot streak. I think he's going to be good all year. I don't think he's going to be great like this all year. It doesn't fit the rest of his profile when you look back through the rest of his years. I think he's a very good player. I don't think he's a great player, and these numbers are that of a great player.
And this is how you win fantasy baseball. You get those guys late that are undervalued, and then you flip them when they have hot starts. Yeah, absolutely. There's really nobody on this list else. He stood out to me. Isaiah Connor Falefa is – I have a decent I like him quite a bit, actually. And if you are playing in leagues where he has catcher eligibility, I think you just hold on, right?
Clearly. I mean, that's one of the biggest surprises to me is Isaiah Connor Falefa. I mean, you're thinking to yourself, okay, you guys are getting rid of Elvis Andrews and you're going to start a catcher at shortstop. Okay, Texas Rangers, good luck with that. But he's been so good. I looked at some numbers for him this morning. 5 home runs, 17 RBI, 7 stolen bases, by the way, which is tied for third, right? Whit Merrifield's way out front. And then basically it's everybody else. They're all around the 7-8 range. Robbie Grossman's in there too, someone that's come on strong of late. But Connor Falefa is someone, expected batting average of 287. Again, I keep harping on this. If you can get guys with batting average, you need to get them because that's where you can gain an advantage right now because the league batting average is so low.
Yeah, I mean, I dig him. I produced a Rangers podcast at The Athletic, and I think I've said this before on the show, so apologies if I have, but he was one of my sleepers for me, and Levi Weaver just talked about him nonstop, the host of the Rangers pod at The Athletic, and just how that transition, because he has been, working the corner, playing a little bit of short over the past couple of years, just like behind the scenes. So it was something that I think Texas had in their game plan, like eventually that they would think that to move him away from behind the plate, but he just makes good contact. He's got speed, as you mentioned. So it's so valuable to have a catcher, on Yahoo. Like that's just, I think it's the only I don't know if you can on CBS. I don't think he has catcher eligibility, and I don't think he has
it's only
it at ESPN.
Yahoo.
Yeah, it's only Yahoo.
Yahoo.
If you're playing Yahoo and you have him in the catcher spot, you are ahead of the curve. Cedric Mullins is the only other guy here that seems like, out of place. He's got hits in, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 straight games. He's got hits. He's hitting 312, 6 bombs, 5 stolen bases as well. And he's been scoring some runs. His ADP was like 407, and he's a top 30 hitter. So maybe somebody to consider flipping. But if you have him and he's free, like you mentioned with guys like Wood, maybe you hang on and you reap the benefits. Let's talk about a few players who have been dropped. We've got 10 minutes and we'll get you out of here. So the most dropped, David Fletcher, which he's my guy, but I understand it. If he's not hitting, getting on base, he does have a ton of runs on the season, and why wouldn't he? When he gets on base and those guys hit him around, he has second, third, short, and outfield eligibility, but I've had to cut my ties with him in a couple spots. He's currently hurt right now. Jeff McNeil, he's expected to be placed on the injured list as of today. So I would assume that's why he's been one of the most dropped players. Michael Conforto, same sort of deal. I would try to hang on to him if I could. Is there a timetable on him, Conforto? Tino, are you rocking a mic here? You're a big Mets guy. Any news on Conforto? If you don't respond, I know you don't got your mic.
No, I'm here.
Baby, let's go.
Yeah, so Conforto, not much yet because his isn't a re-injured injury. The hamstring happened yesterday. It didn't look too dramatic either. He grabbed at it. McNeil, this is like his third time through. So he's definitely IL eligible and will definitely be going there. Conforto, however, they don't know. We'll probably get more by later today, though, I assume.
Okay. He's been dropped in 1,500 leagues already. I think that's just it's too soon, too quick, I think, to cut ties. But he's been a slow starter, Jen. He hasn't been that great to start. Other guys here on this list, Brennan Belt, Asdrubal Cabrera, nobody really spectacular. Ty France was a darling in the off season that people liked. Willie Calhoun went through a bit of a solid run. He's cooled off lately, but I think he could go back to being maybe the most added when it's all said and done. But on this list, Keston Hiura, like, what do you do with Hiura if you own him? Because the upside seems to be there. We've seen the power. He's still young. He's striking out 36% of the time, 32 for his career. He was hitting 152. He's not with this team. Who knows when he's going to come back? You just got him.
I don't think you can hold on to him anymore unless it's a dynasty league. I just don't think you have the room. There's just not enough. I mean, he's not even in the majors. My understanding is that his mother is dealing with cancer.
Oh, no.
And I think that what's going on might be a little more mental than skills related. And sometimes that's something you can't quantify. And
Absolutely.
Unfortunately, until maybe that is solved, I don't know that I would trust him or that you need to worry about keeping him around, because I feel like that's not a technical thing to work out. And so I think that's why they sit him down, just to let him kind of not be under the pressure, just kind of work it out on his own. And I love Keston Hiura, but I think maybe he needs this year off.
Yeah. We wish him all the best. I didn't know that, but yeah, that's just so tough.
That's what I had heard.
So tough to deal with that kind of, there's no question. There's a few guys here and we'll transition to tonight and get your thoughts. Guys like, who I just had it, Tyler O'Neill. I think he could hold, right? People are dropping him. He had the finger injury. It doesn't look like he's going to miss too much time here. He's back in the lineup. I like where he hits at some spots. It's been 5 or 6. He's got 8 homers, 250 is probably best case scenario. 4 stolen bases though. It's nice little sneaky speed there as well.
That's what I was going to say. The thing about Tyler O'Neill is I believe that his speed sprintile is like in the upper 90th percentile. Like, he has sneaky speed. And if he's going to be running, and also, I mean, I can check that on StatCast, but I'm pretty sure it's pretty high, sneaky high. And if he's going to be running as well as that power profile, I don't see how you don't add him. And right now, isn't he batting 280? Which is a little higher than you would expect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. He's got some pop, right? And it's got that power speed, the nice little combo there. And the lineup is decent. It's okay. It's hard to figure out sometimes at St. Louis. Some other guys here most added, Brendan Crawford. So
99% sprees, guys. That's like the fastest.
For O'Neill?
For O'Neill.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, 99th. And his expected batting average is still in the 87th percentile. So he's batting. Okay, so he's batting 250. His expected batting average is 292. Mm-hmm. That's So I mean, Tyler O'Neill to me is like,
yeah.
I got him.
In on him. Thought he was a sleeper. He got hurt.
Yeah.
I hung on, and now he's got the finger thing, and people are willing to cut ties. His ownership at 30% in Yahoo. I would grab him.
Yeah.
Weird guys here that are the most added. I really want to get your thoughts. I know you got to get out here at 5, so I want to get your thoughts on tonight.
No, we're good.
Brendan Crawford.
We got 10 minutes.
Robbie Grossman, Ian Happ, Jan Gomes, Dylan Moore. Like, these guys are not. I don't think any of them are fantastic ads. Depending on if you need, I don't know, maybe you're in a deep league. Kyle Schwarber is starting to heat up a little bit. He's got 2 homers in his past 4 games. He's got 5 on the season. Him and Josh Bell have been very frustrating, I would imagine, for owners to start. But I think, Schwarber, as you mentioned, with the warmer weather, I think he's starting to heat up slightly. Any here, like Crawford, if you need somebody at short, you into him?
Yeah, I'm into both Brandon Crawford and Robbie Grossman, to be honest.
Okay.
Brandon Crawford over his last 15 games, 316 batting average, 6 home runs, a stolen base. Brandon Crawford to me is someone that has always had the power, but for some reason it just hasn't worked out. I think it has to do with his home ballpark. Again, I'm not sure this is necessarily a long-term play, but right now this guy is hot. 6 home runs over the last 15 games. As long as he's in there, I'm absolutely streaming him. Robbie Grossman, again, as we suggested, 7 stolen bases. That's tied for third. In addition to that, 4 home runs, 18 RBI. He's got a 16.6% walk rate. His WOBA is in the 87th percentile. His max exit velo is in the 79th percentile. He's batting 250. His expected batting average is 260. Look, there's not a lot going on in Detroit. Somebody has to do something. It may as well be Robbie Grossman. He was really highly touted, you know.
He was. Yeah.
And he just kept getting injured. And maybe if we see a full season of Robbie Grossman, we're going to get something good. But I think, you know, he's someone you can get that's going to get you a bit of a power speed combo. And those guys are hard to find. And if he's still on your wire, I would absolutely grab him. He's probably going to get injured in a few weeks, but
shots fired
right now.
Robbie Grossman fans were loving it until that end there.
I mean, get him. Like the underlying metrics say that he's actually good. It's not just, you know, just luck. It looks like there are, you know, stats to support. There's metrics to support what he's been doing. So.
Yeah, he enters today on a 7-game hit streak with 15 hits over that span, so he's coming in hot. So speaking of today, there are a handful of games around the diamond. I believe there are 9, but 8 on DK and what do we got here on FanDuel? 8 on FanDuel as well. So I know you've been doing some stuff, some FanDuel. The videos are fantastic, by the way. Just like quick little one hits. I love them. Like who's Jen rocking today as a pitcher and a hitter? So we got some stud arms atop the board today. Garrett Cole, Yu Darvish, Walker Buehler. Taijuan Walker's been really good. I think there's going to be some regression coming from him.
For sure, regression coming
in Atlanta. So yeah, the xFIP I think is almost double the ERA, but he has been. The strikeouts are up. I've always liked him. I think he's a really good pitcher, but the fly balls are. I think they're going to catch up to him a little bit here.
Yeah, I mean he's given up 1 home run, but he's walking too many, and eventually that's just gonna implode one day. It's gonna be really bad. So I just don't want to be on the wrong side of that.
It might be today against the Braves.
It might be today.
So what are you doing here from a DFS standpoint? Who stands out to you?
I'm doing 2 things. I'm doing a cash lineup with Garrett Cole because, Garrett Cole versus the Texas Rangers. Like, how can you not? Rangers is like the 4th most strikeouts in the league, 400 and something already. And Garrett Cole struck out 12 last time out. And I know it was versus the Rays and they have the most strikeouts, but Rangers are kind of similar. He racked up 70 FanDuel points last week. And I mean, there's always also a difference between DraftKings and FanDuel, kind of who I prefer. But in FanDuel, the earned runs cost you almost nothing. It's really all about the strikeouts and the longevity. Well, Garrett Cole goes 7-8 innings, and then he strikes out a bazillion people along the way. That's a lot of points. So it's kind of hard to ever fade Garrett Cole. However, if I'm going to do a flip, I'm actually going to flip to Madison Bumgarner because I'm buying it.
Mad Bum.
I'm buying it. 1 run or fewer over the last 5 starts, a 0.9 ERA over those last 5 starts, arguably a no-hitter a few starts ago. In his last start, his fastball velocity got up to 92.6, which is what hasn't been there since 2019. He says, I think he's just kind of gone back to being old school. I don't know who he talked to. Maybe it was Mason Saunders. I don't know. But basically, he's back, I think. And the matchup looks scary versus the Dodgers, but as we talked about earlier, Dodgers are totally beat up. They're without Corey Seager. They're without AJ Pollock. They're without Cody Bellinger. And actually versus lefties, they have the 6th most strikeouts versus lefties. We saw Yusei Kikuchi strike out like 11 of them.
Yeah.
He's not even good as far as I'm concerned. So it's risky, obviously, starting anyone versus the Dodgers, but the price point, if you want to save money, because you're either going all in on Garrett Cole and just taking a haul at a dart throws at bats, or you're going to be able to also afford someone like a Tim Anderson or a Jose Abreu and use Madison Bumgarner.
It's crazy, Bumgarner. And by the way, are you in the camp? Should he be rewarded for a no-hitter there?
I am.
7 innings?
I mean, I hate it, but the thing is, like, No, because really there's a big difference between 7 innings and 9 innings. But what was the guy supposed to do? Like, exactly. It was MLB's rules.
It's a 7-inning game. The game was over. Like, he started the game and he finished the game, and he gave up no hits.
Right.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah.
Asterisks, are we going to do this with all the NFL records moving forward with one more game in the record books too? Like,
so they're going to have one more game to accumulate stats.
Exactly.
So it's not fair.
Bumgarner is super interesting to me. You rattled off some of his numbers, but a career high 27.5 strike percentage, the fastball where it used to be. Yeah, I mean, he is kind of looking like the Bumgarner of old. He does have a career high fly ball rate, which is a tad concerning for me, but the Sierra is very strong too. He's got, 3.51. I mean, that's one of the better marks of his career too. You go back to just elite Mad Bum when he was winning World Series and he wasn't allowing anything throughout the postseason. Those numbers right now look like those numbers from back then is very, very
And back then, he had a great pitcher's ballpark. He doesn't particularly have that now.
No.
So I don't know. I'm kind of buying it. Like, I think something happened, a switch flipped. I mean, the guy's really good. If he can just go back to being who he is, I don't know what he was trying to do in the meantime, maybe something else. But yeah, I feel like it's a fun play tonight on FanDuel to be contrarian because everybody's going to have Garrett Cole, Buehler, or Yu Darvish.
Everybody will. There's no question. And a lot of people may have the White Sox. We'll get you out of here on this. Our White Sox up against a lefty again. So as I mentioned, these two teams played each other just the other day. It was a 13-8 final. Dallas Keuchel against J Happ. They're going against each other again here today. I took the White Sox over at FTNBets.com, and something that you and I used to do on a show, Sticks and Stacks, was just hammer the White Sox team implied total. It is 4.5 plus money over at Tipico. This is a bet I've already made. I like the over 9.5 plus money. I think we'll see some runs again. Happ was good to start, and maybe we all thought that eventually he would come crashing down, but he allowed just 6 runs through his first 5 starts before running into Chicago last week. They touched him up for 9 hits, 9 runs through 3 1/3. And on the other side, Keuchel was touched up as well. 6 runs, 8 hits, and 5 2/3. He's allowed at least 3 runs in 5 of his 8. Now, both pitchers sitting with an ERA right around mid-4. The White Sox have won 8 of 10, and the Twins have dropped 10 of 12. But again, Jen, they're doing it again without Eloy, without Robert. And Tim Anderson missed a bit of time. They are number 1 against lefties in average, WOBA, WRC+, OPS, slugging, on-base percentage. And the Twins are actually top 10 in all of those categories as well, minus average against lefties. I'm thinking runs again between these two teams.
I'm thinking runs too. And I mean, we're talking Dallas Keuchel is a contact pitcher, pitches to a lot of contact, usually to the ground ball, but not so much this year. He hasn't really had it. J Happ, as you said, was good, but they just dominate lefties. I mean, and we've seen David Vaughn come on in the last week too, right? Yeah. We've been waiting for him. So we've got Yervin Mercedes, who also is very, very good versus lefties. I think I have the numbers here. It's kind of, let's see. Yervin Mercedes is 667, slugging 667 with a homer and 8 RBI versus lefties. By the way, he's only 2,800 on FanDuel tonight. So why wouldn't you do that? Tim Anderson, as we know, Jose Abreu, as we know, always dominate lefties. It just seems like, and Nelson Cruz specifically dominates Dallas Keuchel. So you have that on the other side.
I think we'll see some runs. I mean, Polanco's swinging a bit of a better bat. Garver could. Garver's a guy a couple years ago who just crushed lefties. JD has always been known to hit lefties as well. Sano has been, I don't know what's going on with him, but if he does get into this lineup, it's too bad that Buxton is hurt again because he was off to such an unbelievable start. But there's a lot of guys inside this lineup that could have their way with lefties. So I think that's where I would attack. Jen, always a pleasure. Fantastic stuff as always. I love getting the time to be able to chat baseball with you as well. Any final words? You want to plug some of the stuff because we only have a couple minutes. You're doing so much.
No, I'm just, follow me on Twitter at Jen Piacenti or on Instagram at Jen Piacenti. I'm just kind of like around. Fantasy Alarm is where I am most of the time. I have 2 shows this week actually this afternoon, I should plug today. This afternoon, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, and tomorrow, 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern, I will be co-hosting the Fantasy Alarm Show on Sirius XM. So tune into that. We're going to talk about live bets. We're going to talk about NFL, MLB, trends. We'll do our Jukebox Monday today. So we'll have some hits, some tunes coming out as well, themed tunes. And then you can get DFS picks from me on Extra Points Podcast Network. We do it on the website for free, extrapoints.com, or you can find those videos on Twitter as well. And thank you for having me. I'm so flattered every time Chris, who I consider to be one of the most brilliant fantasy baseball minds out there, asked me to join him. So you guys are killing it over at FTN.
I didn't even tell her to say that. I didn't even tell her. It was not needed at all. You're too kind. We love having you. We appreciate it. Yeah. Check out FTN tonight, FTN Live, right here on the YouTube network, a free show. MLB Live with David Jones and Big John, the host of Cork Stats. So that'll be at 6 Eastern. Give Jen a follow at Jen Piacenti. Check out all of her work there on Twitter. So for myself, Chris Meaney, thanks as always for taking the time to hang out. We will be back later this week. We'll talk some NBA playoff previews here on Mean Streets. Take care. Cheers.